Okie dokie, I think we're live. Good evening. Welcome. This is the first round of the DCCA Online Club Autumn Mini Swiss round. You did put a long title on here. Um, Welcome. I'm joined this evening. My name's Tom Thorpe. I'm joined this evening by a man of many talents. Chess and commentary aren't two of them, but we're here. He's here anyway. It's Dr. Tim Paulden. Hi, Tim.
Hi Tom and hi everyone.
I've literally been working on that all week and I completely screwed that up, but never mind. Um, well, if I open up a game, because we have actually got a game starting on this, Tim, can you talk us through sort of what this is all about? Why are we here?
Okay, so at the Devon County Chess Association, we set up an online club back in April, I think it was, just after lockdown started, and we've been playing a couple of tournaments a week on there. And we've also run rapid play tournaments and a Grand Prix. And this is a slightly different kind of event. It's grade limited, so there are two sections. There's up to 110 grade and up to 160 grade. So we've got 12 people in action tonight, hopefully, if everyone shows up. And we're going to be sort of covering the games.
Absolutely.
They're pretty fast games. I believe we set it as 10 minutes
With
plus
6 seconds,
increments.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And each person's going to be playing the same opponent twice. So
Mm.
we're going to have quite a bit of chess over the next hour or so.
No, absolutely. Yeah, really looking forward to it. And as you say, we've got six games coming up. One game's just started. We'll get all the others up soon. So this is between Barry Purchard and Graham Mill Wilson. So these are two players playing in the minor section. And yeah, we've started out with everyone's favourite opening, the Col. So
Fantastic.
that's the way everyone wants to start off a tournament. Um, I am just opening up other games as we go along, so apologies if the screen flickers. And welcome to everyone who's starting to join us. Sam the Man, welcome. Um, and yeah, we have some vaguely interesting moves now in the centre of the board. Um, for those that don't know, I do play the Cole sometimes, and I criticise it all the time. So that's the way things are going to be. Um,
Yeah, looks like we've got three going now. Is that right?
Yep. Oh,
Just about.
four. Yeah, three now. Yeah.
Excellent.
So we'll get to the other ones as we go through the evening. So just to run through in the major, as you say, we've got 6 players in each section. So we've got 6 players in the major. So that's Michael Marshall, who's playing Steve Dean, Alex Poyser against Brian Gosling, James McDonald against Rob Orton. And then the minor, we've got Graham Mill Wilson and Barry Purchard, who are playing at the moment in the game you can see on the screen. Barbara Newcomb against Richard Bailey, and Trevor Hurt against Robert Kelso. So yeah, six games, going to be a long evening, I think. So interestingly, White's just given up a pawn here. I think what's just happened here.
Yeah, so this is just checking we've got our boards
Mm,
coordinated. Yep.
absolutely.
So we've got Barry here as white in the first game, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. Yeah, so Barry's based over in Sidmouth. He's kind of an active organiser over there. And the player with the black pieces is Graham Mill Wilson, who many of you will know through arbitring. And
Yeah.
Tom, you know him very well, of course. Yeah.
Yes, well, he used to come from Bristol as well, where I grew
Yeah.
up. So I used to play Graham all the time when I was younger as well. Yeah. So we've just had an exchange on the queen side, but black has won a pawn here. White has sacrificed it to gain some sort of lines, but it's going to be interesting to see if white has enough here for the pawn.
Yeah.
Just checking and seeing the other games that are kicking off. This is going to be it's an experiment, isn't it? At the best, at least.
Well, everyone's being very prompt. It's been excellent, actually. People
Well,
have
yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
have logged in on time.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
missing.
That's. I like how we're both sort of referencing against either sheets of paper or
Yeah.
some form of list that we're trying to keep track of who's playing.
So I think we've got our board one in the major just about to start. It looks as if that's just
Yep, that looks like
come
that's
on
just about to start, and that has just begun.
at
So
E4.
we've got 5 games underway, and the last one we're just waiting on at the moment. So that's great. So I don't know if you want to go in any order, Tim, or whether you just want to have a whistle stop tour around everything, and then we can go in a bit more detail later on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, like you say, in this position here, um, it's looking fairly nice for black, isn't it? He sort of won a pawn early on.
Yeah.
Um, both players playing quite quickly. 10 minutes plus 6 seconds increment is, I guess, something like 15 minutes each for the game, isn't it? Something
Yeah,
like that.
it's around that. Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see how the pacing works on all the different boards.
Mm.
Um, just having a look at the top board, Marshall 007. If we
Yes, let's have a look
flick
at
to that.
that.
So,
And the game has been aborted. Excellent.
uh-huh.
That's good. That's a good start for
This
the
is exactly
players.
what we'd expect, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
this is 2020 playing out in front of our eyes. So,
Yeah.
um, I'm sure he's not that scared of the Caracan. So maybe they're
No.
going to restart. Maybe something's gone wrong.
Yeah. We'll have a look at board 2 instead whilst they sort out perhaps some technical difficulties there.
Okay, so this is Alex.
Yep. So
Alex playing white.
Alex is playing white against. Don't be confused. The username Frank Healy is actually Brian Gosling. So
So just give you a little bit of background on these two
go for
players.
it.
So Alex used to go to Exeter University,
Oh,
um,
nice.
and I believe he played in the East Devon Congress 2016 and won the minor with a spectacular 5 out of 5. I remember him being sort of over the moon at that, sort of 4 years ago now.
Mm.
He is now over in Salisbury, but yeah, wouldn't be allowed to play in a minor anymore. So
No.
he's playing in our major. So he's playing white at the moment, and the player of the black pieces is Brian Gosling.
Yeah.
Sort of very strong player from Exmouth. People may know him from the county second team. He sort of plays on the top boards of that, and had a few outings before the lockdown began. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it should be an interesting game. Both very good players,
Yep.
and with Alex having the advantage of the white pieces in the first game.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm just having a look at this position. The engine's saying black has got a big advantage here. I'm not entirely convinced straight away. Is there anything you can see straight away that?
Well, I mean, what jumps out at me here is this bishop being, on this slightly awkward e3 square with the knight still on g1. So I wonder if it's black to move here, whether he can kick it. I mean, that's what he has done.
That's what he's doing. Yeah, this is nice.
And yeah, this f2 square is vulnerable as well.
Yeah.
And if white just defends the bishop, black can chop and then maybe take on f4. So yeah, that it's a sort of tactic that comes out if you haven't got a retreat square for that bishop.
Yep. No, I think you're right. I think that is looking quite good for black there. A nice little tactic on the f2 square. So that's Alex against Brian Gosling. We'll come back to this a little bit later on and see what's going on. Our 6th game has begun. It's between James Mcdonald and Rob Orton. This is the 3rd game in the major. And what can you tell us about those two players?
Okay, so James isn't actually from the Devon area. He's based in Greater London now. He's Irish by background, and I think he could be one to watch in this top section. His rating, obviously, we have new 4-digit ratings now. Everything's new with ECF. So he's 1885 at the moment, but going back, having looked back at his old grades, he has been as high as 184 3-digit grade about 5 years ago. So and he's been 170 or so since about 1994. So
right.
a lot of experience. So yeah, he's definitely going to be one to watch. Experience is on his side, and he's playing against Rob Orton from Barnstable, from local player, sort of from Barnstable. Yes, rated 1630. So the out of the 6 players, he's the lowest rated of the section. So we'll see how it sort of pans out for him with the black pieces here.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
of course, as we've said before in our other events, Tom, when the time control is this fast, I mean anything can happen
Completely.
at any level of chess. If you've only
Yeah.
got 10 minutes plus 6 second increment, it's all up in the air, which is why it's great
Yeah,
to watch.
completely. Well, Jack has just said, Jack Rudd, international master Jack Rudd, has said in the chat that James McDonald's played in the British Championships as well. So,
Ah, excellent.
so that's great. So, yeah, as you say, definitely one to watch. And a pretty solid opening from both players, I think, at the start here. Nothing too groundbreaking, I don't think. But both players playing very steady and just developing their pieces as they bring them out. Let's have a look at Mike Marshall against Steve Dean. Should we try that one again? Um,
Ah, okay. Let's
their
see if we get a
second,
bit further.
yeah, and interestingly, Mike Marshall then goes 1d4, so maybe he was scared of the Caracan because he changes opening after the
Oh,
server.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. What does your with your arbiter hat on? What do you say about that?
Maybe if
Maybe
both
E4 was
players
a
are
mouse
happy.
slip.
E4 maybe was a mouse slip, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we have a London system, so got some standard development here. This pretty solid pawn chain with the bishop coming to f4, and yeah, Black just trying to put a bit of pressure whilst also developing his pieces. Again, fairly standard opening setup, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Standard is the polite word for
I
for the London system.
think
Although
we're meant
obviously
to be
very
polite.
popular.
I
Yeah,
think I
exactly.
think I think we're being polite in
We are being very
for this
polite.
evening.
I've played the London sometimes, so I can't talk.
You've absolutely crushed me when you played London. So, but we'll
It
say no more about that and move on.
might also be worth saying with the player of the black pieces. Sorry, Steve.
Steve Dean,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, Steve Dean from Seaton and Sidmouth. Anyone who's local will sort of know him on the chess scene, and again, one of the sort of top players in the Devon second team.
yeah,
So yeah, it's going to be an interesting battle on top board here.
absolutely. And is there anything you can tell us about Mike Marshall? I don't know if you got round to saying anything
Yeah,
about
yeah.
him.
I've got a few details. I think we're gonna have to speak to all the players in between now and a
Of
fortnight's
course.
time, and get a few extra little snippets because yeah, otherwise we won't have anything interesting to say,
Well,
Tom.
yeah,
But
we've got 4 weeks to fill of
we've
this.
got four. There's four,
So
yeah, so it's four sessions, one a fortnight, isn't it?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so yeah, Mike Marshall. So he's Danish.
Mm,
He came to play in Devon about 4 or 5 years ago,
yeah.
and before going back to Copenhagen, and has previously played in the World Seniors.
Oh,
And
excellent.
once again, his rating has been, um, you know, I think it was 1976 FIDE rating back in 2005, and
Yeah,
then he sort of fluctuated between 1800 and 1900. So again, a very experienced player here with the
yeah.
white pieces.
I think it's just a strong section, if we're honest. The
It is a
major's
very strong
very
section.
strong and everyone's very, very tight. So it's going to be a very interesting section, I think, to keep an eye on. Um,
It's worth
yeah.
saying just something about the format.
Mm,
This is a mini Swiss. We don't know whether this is the first mini Swiss ever. We sort of made it up, but
yeah.
it's three rounds. So as we said before, each each pairing is going to play twice.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the first round this evening. And in a fortnight's time, we'll have round two, and a fortnight after that, we'll have round three. And so the maximum score is going to be 6 points.
Yeah.
Um, not sure anyone will achieve that, but the top
We'll
two
see.
players in each section will advance to the final, which is going to be the on the fourth Wednesday, so sort of 6 weeks from today.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's have a look now into the minor section. We've already had a look at Graham Wilson and Barry Purchase. So let's go to board two in that section, which is between Barbara Newcomb, who's got the white pieces, and Richard Bailey with the black pieces. Two stalwarts, I think, of the DCCA online
Absolutely,
club. Played in
absolutely.
lots of events over spring, in the summer, and now playing in this. Tim, what can you tell us about these two players?
Well, absolutely. I mean, everyone will recognise the names. They've been playing in our Mellow Monday and Friday Night Blitz
Mm,
events throughout the summer. So this is Babs with the white pieces, Lady of the Night, and Richard Bailey or Ocelot 32.
yeah.
So Babs is from Exmouth, rated 1398. Used to play at the East Budley Club prior to that. And Richard Ocelot is a Timoth player.
Yeah.
And he messaged me earlier to say that last season was his first back after 34 years of not playing a single game. So just provide a bit of flavour around that. So he came back to chess last season, then the lockdown hit, and he sort of joined us here online. So
excellent. Yeah. And well, he's up a pawn against Barbara here. Got some difficulties trying to get this bishop out, and may have to be a little bit careful of the back rank. Not at the moment, but should be okay. But a pawn up, looking in a good position here with the black pieces to start things off.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And our final pairing, we'll get through them eventually, and then we'll start looking at some chess, which may not be our forte, is between Trevor Hurt, who's got the white pieces here, and Robert Kelso of the black pieces. And this is an interesting position. But before we jump into that, what can you tell us about these two, Tim?
So I know a little bit less about these guys, so we'll have to message them before next week and get a little "this is your life" type thing going on. So Trev, left hook Trev is Trevor Hurt. He's from the South Hams Club, rated 1450, and Cumby Bob, who's the black pieces, is Robert Kelso. He's from Barnstable. So we've got a couple of Barnstable players. We've got a really nice mix of clubs actually among the 12 players.
Yeah, and I think that's quite a nice thing about sort of the online clubs that have all sort of popped up over the course of the lockdowns and various things, that actually sort of it's brought a county which, geographically is actually quite distant from each other. Everywhere's quite far apart, and actually brought people together to play in these chess events. Not just this, but all the other events that the DCCA have been running over the last 6 months. And apparently he has a very strong Scottish accent. He's a relatively recent member of Barnstable, according to Jack. So
forgive me for not recognising the name, but a relatively recent member. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, welcome.
Absolutely. And Robert Kelso's looking in a pretty good position here. Got 3 minor pieces for the rook, and
there was a little tactic on that previous move, wasn't it? Just if anyone was thinking you could take 2 pieces for the rook, not that you necessarily want to swap off, but that's going to fail to bishop takes h2 on the end, which wins the queen.
So just imagine the queen here.
Yeah.
Boom.
So I wonder if queen e8 was a little sneaky little attempt to finish it quickly.
Absolutely. Avoided, and I think black should be converting this one fairly comfortably, I think, but looking forward to seeing how it goes, because also Trevor's short of time as well, so that's going to be an interesting one, but looking like a win for Robert Kelso. Any games you wish to jump to?
Yeah, should we flip to the Baz Boy being Barry Purchase.
Yeah, so we saw this position when black was a pawn up, and we've now hit this queen and rook endgame and equal material, but
I mean, black's clearly got a bit of a drafty king here, so if anyone's favoured, I imagine it's white.
I think so.
But there's nothing. Doesn't seem to be anything absolutely immediate.
No, I mean, my immediate instinct is to play something like rook e1, try and attack the e6 pawn to go after this king. Seeing if there's any immediate tactics, something like queen f3 or queen f4, but I don't see anything straight away.
Yeah.
And queen g5.
I'm not sure I like that, because can black go rook d5, and is he going to sort of round up this? You've got check, and then I'm a bit worried this pawn might go walkies.
So what, after rook d5, which has been played? Good move from Graham there. Looking to take the c5 pawn.
Maybe he's listening to the stream. Maybe we should suggest a really bad move next.
I don't think we need to try to do that, Tim. I think that will happen.
Yeah, and then
absolutely.
I'm just sort of flicking through the others. It's
absolutely.
It's looking rating roller coaster. Frankly, he's looking quite interesting now. I think black is looking very good now. This was after the early knight g4, so this is the This is
Just
the Alex Poyser game.
just before we jump to that, I was just interested whether White could actually go Rook A8 in that position and actually try and just back here, maybe play Rook A8 and try and get into the king that way. That
I
looked
guess
like
you take on c5. Are you covering f8?
that's quite a clever idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why you're better than me. Um, let's move swiftly on. The rating roller coaster is Frank Healy. Ooh, what's happened here? So we looked after knight g4, and White decided to play f5. But after knight takes e3, that's hitting the rook.
Mm-hmm.
So that's well, there's a lot of piece exchanges here, but in the end, Black has ended up with an extra knight. Is that for any pawns? For a pawn.
Is it?
Knight for a
Yeah,
pawn.
it's an exchange, isn't it? That's two.
It's an exchange. I can't count.
And
Shall I go home?
yeah.
Like,
No, it's an exchange and a pawn, isn't it? Here, so I'm
yeah.
not sure I like the way the White handled that, but
Yeah, but it was a difficult position because
it was very difficult. Yeah.
allowing knight g4 was probably the mistake rather than what happened afterwards. So Black then consolidates and is just then trying to use his pieces to win the game. Use the extra exchange. b4, trying to hit this knight away, so the knight will probably drop back to d7, I suppose. That loses the e6 pawn, so maybe White's trying to get something here.
There's been a big turnaround in the left hook Trev game.
Has there? So when we last left that off, it wasn't looking. I think it's fair to say it wasn't looking particularly healthy for
No,
for Cumby Bob, but we left it around here. Just hop back, Queen h4, and okay.
Okay, that's missing this defender.
So he's missed that the rook was defended by the queen there. So it was a nice tactic. It was the same sort of tactic you came up with earlier, but
yes,
unfortunately not quite working because the rook was protected. So that sort of turned the balance. And if I just skip ahead to the because that's sort of where it's changed, this has become a very tricky endgame. But White's rook should be good enough here with the a6 pawn, I think.
Yeah.
His pawn looks just very, very strong.
Yeah, it looks like Black sort of lost coordination now, I think.
Yeah, and now rook b6 is going to attack both the knight and the bishop, and that's
either rook b6 or even rook d8 there, and then rook d7. So there were lots of different ways to win a piece there. So
yeah. No, absolutely. That is a big turnaround actually. Good spot. So when I said that it was looking like a win for Robert Kelso, I think I'll now say it's looking like a win for Trevor Hurt, and then watch this game be a draw because that's
the commentator's curse.
Absolutely, because now White's got the pressure of the time. With the 6-second increment, he should be okay, but it's only 1 minute 30 remaining on the clock. But the material's going to be in his favour. Dropping the a5 pawn. This could go on for a while. I think that game, rook, White the exchange up, but all the pawns on one side of the board. I think we'll leave that one for now. But which one should we jump to next?
Well, I was looking at the top board again with Marshall.
Marshall.
Because the thing that's interesting about this position isn't so much the position, it's the clock situation at the moment.
Yes,
you're
right.
So this is, it seems like Black's done quite well in equalising, but he's into his last minute. And there is a 6-second increment, which is, I think, obviously more than we play on a Monday. We play 3-second increment and 2-second on a Friday. So 6 seconds can actually, build up quite quickly if you have
absolutely.
some easy moves. And it also means hopefully there won't be any accidental flags or anything like that. That was a part of the reason.
Yeah, and I'm sure Steve won't mind me saying that if anyone is going to accidentally flag, it is probably Steve, given his his performances in previous Mellow Mondays where he's just been crushing me on the board and unfortunately runs out of time. So he's always saying he wants more increment. So ask and ye shall receive, I suppose. But
That's right.
you're right that the clock times
Yeah.
are going to be a key part of this game. But Black has done a good job here in equalising.
I think the difficult thing about this position is White can just play solid moves, and
Mm.
Black is maybe slightly less space. So
Yeah,
like the natural moves aren't there. I don't know if I'd play this as White. This idea of just swapping everything off. Oh, it's fine, of course, but
yeah. I think here I'd like to play D takes because I want to get rid of that isolated queen's pawn. But then that's
yeah.
just me. Um, I do like how both Jack Rudd and John Underwood both have commented in the chat that Steve Dean always does this, only starts playing when he's down to a minute. So I'm afraid Steve's reputation has built
Uh,
something up there, which is
we have to be nice. Everyone today who messaged me back said
yeah,
you have to go easy on us in the commentary because of course we want it to be interesting and
yeah.
educational, and we know how difficult it is to play quickly.
Oh,
But
completely,
but
completely.
yeah. So sorry, Steve.
Well, I'm merely reading what the chat is saying. That's all
Of
I'm doing.
course.
I'm merely the messenger. And also the pot stirrer as well, I think.
So just flicking back to left hook Trev.
Yep.
This is kind of an interesting situation, I guess.
Where's Keith?
Yes,
Where's
exactly.
Keith Arkle?
Where's Keith? Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is the sort of position where, as White, I guess you're going to be trying to take the knight under sensible circumstances, where you win the king and pawn
Mm,
ending. Is
yeah,
one way to play.
yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, obviously, White can just keep sort of tacking around a little bit
Mm.
for now.
Yeah,
Done.
it's going to take a little bit of time, I think, but Black's not really going to have the chance to try and trade off these pawns. Like that would be Black's ideal is getting the pawns off the board to leave it rook versus knight, but I think it's going to be a little bit difficult to get that.
Should we ever look at Lady of the Knight and Ocelot? I don't think we.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and ooh, a
This is
queen endgame.
Yeah, it's getting into quite an interesting situation, and I would not
Yeah,
like to have to calculate this in a hurry.
no,
Um, so, I mean, it's saying it's level,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, Queen D7.
Queen d7. Now, if the pawns are if the queens are traded off, I'm assuming this king and pawn ending's drawn. I'm assuming
Yeah,
the king's gonna take the h pawn whilst black takes the a pawn, and the pawns promote at a similar time. But I think I'm
well,
proving that um, calculation is not the thing. As you may not have seen, but left hook Trev and Cumbie Bob have agreed a draw. So
wow.
I predicted it with my commentator's curse that
It's not an easy. It looks
is
easier than I think it is. I think
yeah,
here, if I think White can sort of either try and maneuver his king in or try and take the knight under decent circumstances, as I say, and try
yeah.
and because where's the king moving
So
to?
in this position, try and manufacture it. So maybe you go sort of king e6 maybe, and
Yeah.
then try and take the knight with your king in front of the pawn so that it is a winning king and pawn ending.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough.
Well,
These are
some combination of sort of king f6 and rook a1, rook h1. So
yeah,
it sort of feels that White, that Black's never going to win your pawn, so you can try different things. So, but
yeah,
maybe the clock situation was a consideration. It's
yeah.
you
No,
know.
absolutely. But that's our
So I think
first result.
yep,
So
fantastic.
they're taking a little bit of a break. Should we jump back to Lady of the Night?
Yes,
Just have a
absolutely.
quick look at that after I very hand wavily described how king and pawn endings work.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. This is kind of hard to sort of calculate. So we'll see
yeah.
see what they come up with.
So
I mean,
we've
I think it's just a case of let's rush at the other pawn. Yeah, like on opposite
one, two,
sides, and then
three, four,
is it going
five,
to be
six,
simultaneous?
8, 9. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8. I think it's level. I think it's level.
It's got to be within one, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Because after this move, Black's just going to get there. Yeah.
Yeah, so black's going to promote, then white's going to promote, and the queen on
Yep.
this square isn't going to defend the
Yep.
promotion square. So we will have queen v queen. Interestingly, if white was one move ahead, then it
Mm.
oh no,
Then
it would
you would
also be
almost have a tactic.
almost have a tactic, yeah, with
Yeah.
that queen a8 and then queen b8 check, but no good, no good, and
So yeah, a draw is looking reasonable there,
I
isn't
think
it?
so.
So,
I think so. Just so
well, I
long
mean,
as white doesn't go to the h file.
yeah, So just
That's
what King F5 or
yeah,
King F3, and yeah,
that's the one trick.
just there we go.
Good move.
Yep, and then
And
that's
I
it.
think we'll see handshakes all around in a little bit of time there.
Or some sort of elbow bumps or something
Oh
socially
yeah,
distant.
sorry, no handshakes nowadays. Sorry.
Okay, so
Time's getting short on many other games. Let's jump
yeah,
to
absolutely.
another.
Which do you
Um,
fancy?
let's go to Rob Orton's game against James Mcdonald, I think.
Okay, yeah.
So we have a same coloured bishop end game with equal pawns.
Hmm.
So Rob Orton, I think the section's very strong, and Rob Orton I think is the lowest seeded. I think you said correctly. I think in this and but
Just yeah,
just about
16-30.
but
Just squeezed out of the other
but
section.
absolutely holding his own in this game in this first game.
Yeah.
Um,
It feels like it's going to be quite hard to break through here.
yeah, I mean
Um,
it's a question of whether this dark square bishop's going to be good enough because you can attack the d4 pawn. I don't think it is. I don't think it's enough, but. Uh, I think I'd rather be black here, but only just.
yeah.
But I think it is, as you say, it's going to be difficult for black to make progress here, especially with the doubled pawns not not really being able to make a breakthrough on the king's side.
I guess White's got a decision to make as to whether he just sits passively with the bishop, or
Mm,
sort of, or tries to bring it outside with sort of bishop a5 and kind of going that way. Um,
yeah,
there's the pawns on the queen side being on light squares not going to get attacked by black's bishop. So where does White actually want his bishop in an ideal world?
yeah,
Um, and yeah, it sort of feels like either plan would have been fine there. I'm sort of thinking bishop a5, bishop d8, and king e3, and then saying to black, "How are you winning this?" But
absolutely. I think
yeah.
yeah,
I think this is going to be
and there's
this
bishop
is going to
a5.
yeah, bishop a5. Yeah.
Now I've heard that there is a big blunder
Oh no.
in the Alex Poyser Brian Gosling game, so I'm just going to jump back to that. Um, so it was looking like white black was doing well here, I think, with the pawns. Pawn on e3, but after rook takes e3, rook d5 check, and then bishop takes d5, so a dropping of the rook there. So
Oh goodness me.
yeah,
So
so
it's quite an interesting position because you can't take on f7 because of rook f3, right? This is the
yes,
idea.
yeah, yeah,
So
rook
he's just
f3
sort of
check.
tried to deflect. Yeah.
Yeah, so rook d5 feels like a good move, but unfortunately the bishop.
And but now black's fine, right? After the way it turned out.
Well, this is where it
Yeah.
goes because after king takes c3, the knight fork and
Yeah.
suddenly it's come back. This is blimey, and now black is
Yeah. I mean,
is ahead
king
again.
takes. Yeah, king takes c3. You could just check on f3 instead. It's always
Yeah,
it's really hard to see sometimes these intermediate moves when you're short of time. It's just obviously I want to do
mm.
this. I mean,
And as well, just as you've just come back into the game after bishop takes
yeah,
d5, you
yeah,
sort of lose your focus a little bit sometimes because you think you've done the hard work in
yeah.
coming back into the game, and sometimes you let your guard down, and that's the point where things can go wrong.
I
So
think
that
it will be a roller coaster here, unfortunately for
well,
Alex.
yes,
He's not
that
going to be
that
happy with
was
that.
yeah, that's a very swingy game. Um, right, so we've still only got those two results so far in
Yeah.
the minor draws. This one's looking like it's going to be a win for Brian Gosling.
Should we switch to Marshall and Kashani because they're in
Yeah,
the last 20 seconds each now?
absolutely. So this is, I mean, with best play, I think it's safe to say this will probably be a draw. But with this short time, will it
Exactly,
be? Will it be?
exactly. I think this idea it's just after King F6, it sort of feels like it's
Yeah,
should be comfortable, but should.
yeah,
I mean, and now obviously, Michael's slightly down the clock, not by
yeah,
much, but
yeah, absolutely. But it's a case of Steve's probably. I mean, you could say he's slightly worse because of these pawns. It should still be a draw because the king can defend all of them at the same time and
exactly.
sort of just hold everything together.
Yeah,
But
I think we might see a repetition here. I just
I
don't
think
think
so.
there's. Yeah,
Yeah, king f6 here, and I think Well, we'll see if there's not a repetition. There is,
Honoured, yeah.
and that's also another draw. So we've had 3 draws so far. Three
And
draws. Uh, the
three
ten.
draws, and we have a queen and king versus king. So that hopefully that won't be another draw.
Yeah, it was the chance with King C6. That was
There was, it was on, it was on.
it was on. It was on. But
I think I
that's
remember Alex always playing on to the bitter end. So that's
mm,
as he's of course entirely entitled to do.
absolutely. So
So
let's jump to which one do you want?
left, left.
Graham Wilson or Rob Orton? Which one do you want?
Yes, let's do. So let's look at James and
Yep.
Rob Orton. I
Ooh,
think I think now we're going to get a great example of king shouldering here.
absolutely.
You
Yes.
know, this is drawn, everyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nope.
Equal material. Pawns
Yep.
can't go anywhere.
Same
Easy, right?
pawns, symmetrical position, looks symmetrical. It's not, and I get a feeling we're going to have a demonstration why
Absolutely.
from James. So there's essentially, black now is forced away from the defending G5. He has to go to
Yep.
E6 to defend F5, and then King G6 is going to pick up the F pawn.
Yeah, the master of the opposition.
That's game over.
There it is. I remember I had a game against
Mm.
another ex-Devon player, Rob Thompson, um, who was at Talkie Boys Grammar School, and I played him when I was in secondary school, and I thought I was getting a draw in a bishop bend game, traded the bishops, and then his king marched in, shouldering my king everywhere, and I ended up losing. It's
So
precisely in this fashion.
how many years ago was this?
This would have been about 10 years ago, probably.
I think the chess trauma is very real, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it is. Yes,
Yeah. I mean, I think I completely trust White to
yeah.
yes, play F5 here and then
This
King
pawn,
G7.
this
I think
pawn's going to
that's
come
over.
through.
So do we have let's
Well, it's just the first game that started, and it's going to be the last game of the
so,
round. Well, it's not because it's just finished, but
so the pawn got through. Should we just have a look at the end of that?
yeah, absolutely. Let's just jump back. So another king and pawn ending. All of these have gone to end games. These have
Mm.
been
It's been great, yeah.
some fantastic games here. The people that decided the sections, I think, are fantastic.
That's right.
Um,
'Cause it looked very much like a draw. If you go back
mm.
to say move 60, 65.
They've
They've just started again. So
they've just
we'll come
started
back to
again.
that at the end maybe.
Yep. Well, I think afterwards we might come back to some, but yeah. So a lot of the players are just taking a little bit of a breather
Yep.
to start off with, which is absolutely fine. So let's have a look at the only other game that's going on. Graham Wilson and Barry Purchett have started their second game, but we'll jump to Trevor Hurt and Robert Kelso, I think. And we had an England gambit, d4, e5, and a very modest response with c3, I think is the way of saying it. The idea,
Yeah.
of course, if you take on e5, black's going to go d6, I think, is the idea, and then play bishop, take with the bishop and try and get a lead in development.
So what's this? So after black plays e4, what's this sort of resembling? It's kind of like a reverse Caro-Kann or something
A
like this.
reverse
F
Caro-Kann,
d5.
yeah, but
Yeah.
after e3, it's almost a reverse French where white's
It
got
is.
c3 in early, right? Um, it's
But white wants to play c4 in one move, right? Normally, if it's a
well,
French.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So but instead,
So
white's
maybe that's what he was after. E3, D5, C4, and you are genuinely playing a French as white.
yeah. But instead, white went f3 and tried to break open the center there, and we had this queen h4 check idea, which is nasty. After taking on f3, this is the problem with moving your f pawn. Is of course you weaken the king, and this diagonal you've always got to watch out for the queen check. It's not losing, but it's always a little bit dangerous when the queen plays this way. I'll skip ahead to the current position, and we've got a position where black has thrown the kingside pawns forwards. What's going on, Tim?
Good question. I mean, it feels like white needs to. It feels like his queen side hasn't got out of bed yet.
Mm.
and that should be the priority. Obviously, White's just castled and gone Queen H5. I'd like to see these pieces kind of get into the game somehow.
Yeah,
It's difficult because of this pawn structure that's been established early on.
yeah,
How is the C1 bishop getting out? Yeah, knight D2 kind of makes sense, but the bishop then can't move. So,
yeah.
what is White planning to? I don't know. Is White planning to try and stick a knight on E5? That looks bold
It's a bold
because
move.
there's a lot of defenders on that square, aren't there?
There are. You should be able to take this and take with the rook. Oh, only with the knight because you've
Take with
obviously
the
got
knight,
them.
yeah,
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 he's not taking it though. He's decided to just develop,
yeah.
and
I don't know if we can just step back and move.
yeah, absolutely.
Is that easy? Yeah. Yeah. So after this F4, I mean, there's four attackers and only two defenders. Yeah, on that in terms of what White's got on that square and what Black's got on the square. So,
Yeah,
although it's tempting to try and open up the G file, it is sort of safe to do that. I suppose Black's miscounted in terms of pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, and
yeah,
Black can't go queen takes knight because there's another piece, the rook, defending
yeah,
F4.
yeah. So despite this G pawn being pinned, it's still not enough. Yeah,
So White has got this blocking knight into E5, but the king side has been completely eviscerated.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, this is looking very nice for Black, isn't it? It
yeah.
feels
It's
like
very
it's
nice position.
yeah,
I mean, how you actually break through, I'm not sure immediately, but I don't think Black needs to. I think that's
yeah,
the trouble with this position is that okay, White's got, as you say, this really nice knight on E5, but Black can play this slowly because White's king's queen side isn't in the
yeah,
game straight away,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Black's just rolling the G pawn forwards, which I think is a very good plan.
Yeah. I think he needs to figure out what he's doing with his bishop, Black.
Yeah,
It sort of feels like it needs to choose a square. So I don't know whether that means moving the queen, sticking it on D6, or
yeah,
I don't know here.
yeah. But I think Black's obviously got the advantage here, and be interesting to see, as you say, how Trevor goes about developing this. I think
No,
putting
no,
the bishop
there
on
isn't. Yeah,
D6 is a good
yeah,
idea.
exactly. There are. I mean, it sort of feels like. I mean, I've blown positions like this, as I'm sure we all have.
Oh yeah,
As well. So I mean, it is only a pawn up,
mm,
and Black has to be careful not to fall into like a knight F7 at the wrong time or something like this. It's a long way from working because of the
yeah.
queen. But yeah, is it just a case of getting the rooks into the game now and
I think so. I think so. Now that obviously we've decided this bishop um, square, I think we can even consider just taking and playing something like Queen E6, maybe putting the knight on F5, defend the pawn with H5, and then get the rooks in the game because then your
yeah?
rook on G8 isn't tied down to defending the pawn. I think there's definitely options. Um,
We've had a couple more start, and
okay.
uh, Deviate versus Bazboy is
Uh-huh.
looking well.
Ooh.
Take a look.
Oh dear. Well,
Yeah,
let's
not
see
sure how
how
we got
this
to that.
happened. So we had a modest sort of E6 and D6 opening from Black against
Yeah,
Graham Wilson, and knowing Graham Wilson, he will just take control of the centre, no matter what. Um, he's a real fighter for the centre, and
yeah,
Black playing this setup here. I mean, you play the more than I do, and may sort of have ideas. It almost feels like this A5 move perhaps is sort of a little bit um, of an inaccuracy, only because you sort of want to get the bishop out, or play the bishop to B7, and the pawn on A5 isn't doing huge amounts.
yeah. Yeah, I think when you still have pieces at home, you've got two bishops who
Yeah,
still undeveloped here. Um, Generally speaking, not always, of course, but get them out and start using all of your army, I suppose.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Saying that, White's left his queen side at home, but
yeah,
well, we'll see what happens. A trade on
uh,
B5. Knight jumps back, and now the knight is infiltrating on these
yeah.
really nice
It's
dark
just I think
squares,
it's just an oversight, isn't it, that the knight's hanging on
and the
D7.
knight's hanging. Yeah, that's unfortunate. And interesting that Graham decided not to trade the
Mm,
queens here. Um,
yeah,
I think they're
I think it's perfectly safe on C6, isn't it? It doesn't look like it's getting
if it ever
stuck
gets if it ever gets in,
in any possible future. So
I mean,
yeah,
the white knight should probably just jump into D6, and yeah, that's looking very tough, especially a piece down. Looking very tough for Barry in this position. Remember, Barry lost the first game in this match as well. So yeah, going to be it's definitely an uphill battle here in that game.
can we just flick back to Cumby Bob
We
for a second?
can,
This is I think starting to hot up. We'll look at the other ones in a second. But
yeah, absolutely.
so this knight's got to this f5 square, which was sort of yeah.
Yeah, and White's obviously now trying to get this dark squared bishop into the game. It was sort of stuck behind for ages. You can win the pawn, of course, with rook e8 and then taking on e4.
Well, you've
Oh
actually
no,
got
because you
queen
play
takes
queens.
f5, unfortunately, in this exact
Oh,
position.
of course you do.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. But
It's
after
amazing
this
what
one,
you miss when
I
you
know,
just
yeah,
try
yeah,
and look
just
for ideas. It's amazing.
yeah. I just think these two runners on the king side are just gonna kill White off. I think
Yeah,
you know. I guess White's going to take that back, and then I mean h5, h4. I mean, there's tactics in there, aren't there? So you cut, for example, even if g4 wasn't defended,
yeah.
with h5, if queen takes g4, knight e3
Knight
will
e3
pick up
exactly.
queen with that sort of double attack. So I mean, h5 first seems like a nice way of starting,
Yep.
and yeah, this is looking very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I am going to now jump to Steve Dean versus Mike Martian. Before we go to it, John Underwood and I have a prediction that it might
Ah,
be a London system.
ah,
And John's wanting his fix of a London system.
right, excellent.
Ask and ye shall receive. There we are. Bishop f4. Um,
I don't think you'd get very long odds on betting on this London system being on the board.
no.
Uh,
I think a comment from John earlier was Steve Dean will play the London system with White as well, unless Earth gets destroyed in the next 10 minutes or so. So
yeah,
here we are. And it's kind of interesting how Black has sort of moved their queen out and then sort of just dropped it
yes,
back to d8 and given White this development here.
yeah. I've seen this idea before. We go knight a3, knight c4. It's quite clever, and then
Mm,
it's sort of a turbocharged London system.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, I as much as I don't want to praise the London system, I quite like White's position here. I think just a modest castles, put the rook on the e file, and you've got everything you want really out of the opening, and you're probably a tempo up from where you'd expect.
it depends, doesn't it? Because if Black Castle's kingside and you're feeling particularly caveman-like, I guess it's just going to be h4, h5, and White saying, how are you gonna defend against this? Because all the pieces are pointing in that direction, aren't they? So
Yeah,
yeah, Queen e2 is fine, of course.
yeah, absolutely. It's just putting a bit more pressure on the e4 square. It's always a battle in these openings between the e4 square and the e5 square, just who can get the most control over them. Um, yeah, but both players play in the London. Both players probably know this and have played it for many many years. So
I hate to go back to Cumby Bob again, but we've had another twist in the tail.
that's all right. Ooh,
Let's have a look.
hello.
So I think Black thought that this was winning material,
Yeah,
but there's this idea of bishop g5 and then f5 is hanging, of course.
with check.
Yeah,
But so now we're going to get a trade on f5, and then
yeah,
now this we could be getting a king and pawn ending here with rook takes g5. He plays pawn takes instead. Now let's just drop back. It was the king and pawn ending a better idea? I'm not sure. I didn't really have time to think about it.
I think I'd probably prefer it, but because after this, I mean, yeah, Black's. It just feels like White can just keep pushing. Like
Mm,
if you just skip forward to where we are in the game at the moment, White's managed
yeah,
to sort of contrive this position, And I mean, you have to massively prefer white now. And then there's the
I'm not
there's
sure I
the pawn.
prefer white, but oh no, I prefer white.
Okay. What changed your mind? Yeah.
My brain kicked in.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a miracle I've got to where I am in chess, and it's not that
I'm
far.
not, I'm not, I'm not saying anything.
No, I know.
Um.
You're allowed to criticize the co-commentator. You're
Okay.
not allowed
All
to
right.
criticize the players.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Okay, so I
So we've got an
think.
interesting. Yeah. I mean, I was just flicking through. There's
Mm,
interesting. Rob Orton, maybe.
yep. I just wanted to quickly say I think this 4v3 rook ending should probably still be drawn with best play, but it's going to be very difficult to hold this one, I think. But
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. Um, ooh, especially since Black is now getting active. Let's go to the Rob Orton game before I get too into a rook end game.
Okay. Lots of endings. It's been really interesting
Yeah.
how things sort of got traded off. But
Mm.
all right. Yeah. So how did this start? Sorry.
Okay. Just realised I'm missing a few games on my off my screen. Chess.com seems to have just kicked a few of them off, so
Ah.
that's slightly frustrating, but that's fine. So the Rob Orton game we've got up here. So it is equal material at the moment, but there's an isolated queen's pawn that is under a lot of pressure here, and it's not looking pleasant. The pawn is pinned as well to the queen, so you can even start thinking about moves like e5 to put the pressure on this pawn.
Yeah.
It's just very much a weakness. When you got the isolated queen's pawn, you sort of want your pieces to be active, and you use sort of the open files around the isolated queen's pawn. This one is unfortunately just an isolated pawn that's in trouble. Graham Wilson has just beaten Barry
Uh-huh.
Purchard as well, so let's just jump back and see the
Oh, there
the
we
the
go.
ending of that game, because
Yeah.
we left it where white was a knight up, and
It's now gained a few more pieces.
yeah, a couple
Yeah.
of rooks, and
Yeah.
a nice checkmate finish in the end there using the knight and the queen. Um, so that's a 2-0 victory for Graham Wilson. So an excellent start for him in
Yeah.
the mini Swiss. So yeah, a pretty solid performance, I think, there. But Graham, the top seed, I believe, in this section. So it was always going to be a tricky pairing for Barry.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. There's a good number of players sort of in the 1400s. Graham's sort of 1495. So
Yeah,
um, yeah. Well done, Graham.
absolutely. Right, what
We've
game
got a
am I
couple of
missing?
others pop up. So we haven't looked at
Okay.
uh, Ocelot Lady of the Night is
Yep,
going. Got that one?
that's fine. Sorry, I've just
Yeah.
opened up the final game that I was missing, so we're good to go.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so Lady of the Night and Ocelot. So they drew their first game, as you can see. It actually says on the left hand side, so that's excellent.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
makes my job a lot easier. I have been recording it, but there we are. So White's got the bishop pair, but this bishop on c2 is not great at the moment, but can obviously
Yeah.
get better. These knights doing a good job sort of defending them each other, and controlling quite a lot of squares in White's camp. But just trying to work out a plan for both sides here. White's
Mm.
obviously pushed the f pawn up the board. I sort of almost want to tuck the king in the corner and maybe go a bit caveman with rook
Yeah.
f1 and
I was going to
f6.
say,
But
I wonder whether Rook belongs on F1
mm,
in this position. That's like the obvious, the obvious plan.
yeah,
Black's now played F6 to sort of shore everything up.
shores everything up, but self pins the knight on c4. I actually think this is quite a good move, because you can't really do anything about the pin at the moment, and black eventually is going to just
Yeah.
move out the way, I think.
There is one tactical idea here, isn't there? That you can try and break open. I think that might be slightly premature. I was going to say if you play a4, you can't actually capture it because you can take on c4 and then you've got queen d5.
Yeah.
So that this idea of a4 and trying to sort of open up the queen side might be a decent try for white.
Yeah.
But queen d5, I think, slightly rushing it. The king's in the corner. There's no checkmate on g8, unfortunately, and
There's not.
no. So
Yeah.
even if you wanted there to be,
And now if the
and
bishop takes c4, I think I'm liking black's position here, to be honest. Because black's knight, if you just look at the comparison of the two knights, black's knight is just a very strong piece in this position.
Yeah.
Compared to the knight on g3, which feels a little bit misplaced. It'll probably have to go to e2 and then to f4 or d4 to try and get back into the game.
I quite like this b takes. I think this
I
is the
like
right.
it.
I think this is the right idea.
Yeah. Allows you to use the
Use
b
the b
file
file.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of pluses here for black.
Yeah. No, I really like that move.
There's Frank Healy. I
Yep.
think I didn't have that one. Up,
I
Frank
didn't
Healy.
have that open either, but
maybe it's closed it automatically or something.
absolutely.
Yeah, this is looking again quite difficult for black.
Yeah. Yeah, black is the exchange down, and I mean black's obviously got the two bishops here, so if black's able to create some counterplay with those and make it difficult, that would be obviously great, but I think it's going to be very difficult to do that. The pressure on c5, if you ever take on c5, white's rooks are in a perfect position to start infiltrating black's position. Yes, I think that's going to be tricky, and here I think you can play rook takes d4. Well, obviously you're going to play rook takes d4, and then but then the c rook's gonna start making inroads into c7.
Yeah, I think unfortunately there's other pawns dropping off, aren't there? Like the a pawn's going to drop off, and there's just not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, rook c7 is curtains, I think.
Yeah, I think that's going to be tricky because you as black, when you're material down, you really don't want to be going passive with something like rook e8 to defend the pawn because you're already down on material, so you don't want to, further lose pieces if you like having to defend. But that's
it's
going
just
to be
sort of
tricky.
piling up on this e pawn now, isn't it? And it's like all hands on deck, and I don't know if it's going to be possible to. There's a fork now, isn't there? Rook d5 picks at the
yeah. That's quite a nice tactic. And if Brian sees that, then I think that will be sort of dotting the i's and crossing the t's on.
GG.
Yeah, I mean, less of a roller coaster this second game by the looks of it. But the first game certainly, both players had their chances, and.
So you have to little pop quiz. You have to guess. There's one player who is in their last 30 seconds. You have to guess who that is.
Sir, can I answer? Is it you?
Yeah. So yeah.
Should we jump to Steve Dean's game?
Yeah. Steve with the white pieces here.
And sort of so white's continued to have this can keep control over this e5 knight, and again just look at the two bishops is the key thing here, I think. On the board
and has won a pawn.
And has won a pawn. Yeah.
Yeah. So this should be not easy to convert, but I mean I think it's just trade off the rooks, isn't it? I think. Yeah. This is going to be a really interesting one because it's exactly the kind of position where you think if it was equal time, then Steve would win this 95% of the time or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But with 15 seconds left, it's really, really tricky. He
Absolutely.
has got the nice thing about this position is there's a bit of a bind, isn't there?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's going to take quite a lot of doing. I'm not sure I particularly like this knight takes c6 move, only because I quite liked the knight on
I think he wants to play Queen E5. I think he's trying to simplify and just go, you know,
Which short of time I think is a good idea actually. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And just try and make use of the fact you're a pawn up. It's not a
yeah.
brilliant pawn because it's only
No,
on, it's one of the double ones, but your bishop's also going to be better. This F pawn taking I really like. It just blocks this bishop, this light square bishop in.
yeah, exactly.
So I think that's a good move. Just as an update, we've had Trevor Hurt and Robert Kelso draw their second game.
Uh-huh.
Ended up with rook and rook. So a one-all draw between those two players in a very entertaining game. We sort of spent quite a bit of time looking at it, very back and forth, and well defended. I think from both sides had their advantages in their respective games, and
That was the 4 versus 3, wasn't it? On
that was the
the
four v
4 versus
three.
3.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
yeah,
Well played both. I mean, yeah, it was.
absolutely.
There's a lot going on in both the games, so honours shared.
Yeah, and I think it just showcases just how close these sections are going to be.
Mm.
That in the first round, where it's meant to be sort of, in theory, the top half seeding against the bottom half, and we've already got two draws and lots of draws across the board. It's going to be an excellent tournament, I think. Shall we jump to Ocelot and Lady of the Night?
Yeah, sounds good.
Um,
So what's going on
and
here? Level material,
yeah,
knight versus bishop.
yeah, and well, we were sort of praising the pawn, the b takes, and you can still see that this b file is going to potentially be good here in this position. I think maybe even
Yeah,
rook b8 here is a good idea.
yeah. The one difficulty I have with this is if when white plays knight e3, is the knight going to ultimately end up being a really nice piece?
Yes.
I think this can sort of turn on a dime, this kind of position,
Mm,
because it's got a nice home on d5.
yeah.
I sort of, yeah. I think swapping rooks
Yeah.
seems a bit limp, but
Yeah. But
yeah. I mean, yeah,
maybe White's just saying that that his knight's going to be best. But I think it's almost a position where I sort of want to go c6.
yeah. I don't like that move at all
No,
because
this.
I think it's the wrong idea. I think
Yeah.
because White's got all the manoeuvring potential now,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't look like this much, but there is a lot because the knight can basically go anywhere.
Yeah.
So
No, of course. I think sort of pawns can't go backwards, and that
yeah,
sounds ridiculous, but it absolutely
yeah,
makes a big difference here. That sort of this
yeah,
d5 square we both sort of recognised was
yeah.
the
I mean, it
key square.
might be worth saying why that's the key square is that after black plays c5
Yeah,
on the next move,
yeah,
black can no longer attack or defend, however you want to
yeah,
see it, that square with the pawn.
yeah,
So that's why it's that outpost square.
yeah.
Just sort of immediately jumps out, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's almost like you'd want to play sort of that pawn on c5 back to c6 to sort of, you want to move it backwards, which is the sort of thing that once your pawns have moved forwards, you do weaken the sort of squares by the side of them. There has been a result in Steve Dean against Mike Marshall, and it has been agreed a draw.
I can understand that because of the time situation. Yeah,
Yeah.
Steve said GG. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm being honest, I mean, I would probably play this on as white with the 6 second increment. I mean, maybe it's just the type of thing that I just like shuffling my pieces and seeing if I can create anything. But
oh, I think under normal circumstances, you definitely try and win this.
yeah,
You know, it sort of feels like White can try lots of different things. Black isn't attacking White's pawns anytime soon, and
yeah,
you know, the ones on the king side, or the ones on the queen side. So
yeah,
run the king over to the queen side and see what you can do. I
yeah,
suppose. I mean, yeah, obviously 30 seconds left.
yeah.
Taking the draw makes perfect sense, really.
Of course.
Um,
And yeah, as Steve says, his time was low. Not
yeah.
sure if he missed a win. So yeah, so that was agreed a draw. So that's also two draws in that match. And there's another match that's had two draws in. That's Ocelot and Lady of the Night. Which
I
is
was hoping for a sort of Arkle-esque,
yes,
another 150 moves to to demonstrate the knight being better than the bishop, but
yeah,
um,
yeah.
maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not. No,
It'd be interesting to see what. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I
my
mean,
suspicion is that White's probably still like,
just for
yeah,
an
go on.
example, in this position here, it kind of looks like it's locked, doesn't it? But White can play G5, right? Whenever
Yes.
he wants, because takes, and then King G4, and then you're gonna win the pawn with the king. So White's got this sort of advantage that Black is just stuck playing on the light squares with his bishop,
Yeah.
and White can attack both colours. Now you've obviously got to be a little bit careful about what happens to E4 and things like that after Bishop C6. But yeah, you can sort of play forever here as White, can't you? So.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
or you can agree a draw
Or
and
you can agree a draw.
go and
Absolutely.
get a nice glass of wine instead.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think that's a really important point with G5 there, because it does look like it loses a pawn, right? But because the
yeah.
king can come in and take it at its leisure, that
I think it has
allows.
to be played at the right time, doesn't it? You have to
Yes.
be a little bit. You've got to be alert in this position to Bishop H5. But
Yeah.
this, this is the idea. If you're given chance to play G5, you can, and
Yeah.
it's going to create another weakness.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like Frank Healy's doing exceedingly well.
Yes.
Djokovic
Well, we left that in a position where it was looking very good for Brian. With the white pieces, he didn't find the fork of the two bishops in the end, but has still managed to manufacture this position, and it's still looking pretty tricky. The e7 pawn now potentially dropping off, and he has taken it.
And then the other game is Black's won a pawn. The Rob Orton game.
Yes, and it's another endgame. Endgame. Remember, so James won their first game and is now up a pawn in his second one, so looking to try and get a 2-0 win in this match, which has been pretty well contested actually.
Definitely.
Um,
Yep.
I mean, they all have, if I'm honest. Um, excuse me.
It's Black to move here.
Yeah. So how do we want to play this as Black with the extra pawn? Because it's looking to try and get e5 in at the right time without allowing White to get the rook active.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is this okay.
I think so. I think if you go
It
king
is now.
e4,
Yeah, King
yeah,
F5 now. Yeah.
king f5. If you went king e4, I think you then go perhaps rook e2 check. Um, but I think it becomes pretty tricky.
Oh, I'm not sure that's the right idea.
Yeah,
That's a little bit passive, isn't it?
yes. But of
Yeah.
course, as White here, you can't go rook c6 because when
Yeah.
Black takes on a3, A, it's check, and B, it defends the a6 pawn. So White's a little bit tied down. And f4 looks to trade some pawns on the king's side. I think we could be here a while in this game. And oh no. Oh, so if we just jump back to Brian Gosling against Alex Poyser, unfortunately there has been a timeout for Brian Gosling, and so that is a win for Alex in the end. Brian was
Wow.
ahead in this game for long periods, but just got caught on the clock in the end. That's unfortunate.
Yep.
That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, this is Blitz though, isn't it? Or
It
is
is.
this Rapid? This is Rapid, isn't
This
it?
is just about rapid,
Just
yeah.
about Rapid. Yeah. I mean, if you just keep setting problems for your opponent,
Mm.
you know.
Yep. It was well hung on
It
because
was, yeah.
both of us thought it was curtains. I think it's fair to say for Black, and okay, Black is still in a lot of trouble, but Black made it difficult for Brian. So well done to Alex there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he's actually played really quickly. So Alex only had 1 minute left to Brian's 2.5.
yeah,
And so he's managed to play very quickly under pressure, I think. So.
yeah, absolutely. So that game has also ended 1-1. So it's very, very tight in this tournament. We've had 4 matches so far go 1-1, which makes the pairings nice and easy, I think. But
Yeah,
it
that's
makes
good.
my job easy. But yes, so 4 games 1-1, and then Graham Wilson has won 2-0 against Barry Purchase in the minor, and we're left with this final match between James Mcdonald and Rob Orton. which is now on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult to play with this little time, I think.
Yeah, very tricky. And black can obviously, will be pushing for the win, trying to break through with the extra pawn, looking to try and break through with the 3v2 on this side. Maybe can you go f4 here?
F4 looks good, doesn't it? Just to whichever way you take, you're creating a pass pawn.
Yeah. Or taking on h4 first and then f4. I don't mind this either.
Yeah.
Though if you go f4, rook
well,
f3,
I'm wondering, yeah.
and the king's going to sit nicely on f5, and then you can start, moving
But what's interesting now is you can still play f3, can't you? I think because after takes, you're going to win that. It's similar to the shouldering in the other game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the king and pawn endings.
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah.
Winning? Yeah, it looks like it to me. So
he's got 10 seconds to decide.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's not sure. He's dropped back. He's not sure.
Yeah, I think that might be King F7. Yeah, if it's not F3, King F7. I don't think can be the right move.
Well, yeah, because of course this. Well, now we've got to calculate some more king and pawn end games.
Yeah.
But I
think it's just going to end up a draw in the opposition. But he's going to have to move.
I think so.
I think it's just takes. I mean, it's going to be a draw.
I think so. So I think when you take on f4 and then play king f6.
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah. The opposition, there's no way to. No. Well, hang on. Well, where does white put his king in this position? And is black has black got the time?
You're kidding? You're absolutely kidding me, right? I'm queening in like 7 moves.
Yeah, okay, it's 2 moves short.
Oh, hello.
Oh!
E5. Oh, he had it for 1 move.
He had it. He had it.
Flick back there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it went crazy, that was King E5, wasn't it? And then you've got the same shouldering. Yeah, the same shouldering idea again. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're just gonna go get that position up.
Yeah. Well, I can actually get this on an analysis board because that was the last game. So
okay. Yeah.
I shall hop this open on analysis board. Apologies, this isn't going to be perfectly aligned on the stream, but you can still see the whole board, so that's the main thing. So if I just get the analysis open here, so if we just jump to the king and pawn ending, so I want to jump back to where we both said you can go f3. So in this position here.
Yes.
I'm just making that a bit better on the stream. So here, if you go f3, the idea is that if you play rook takes f3, king takes f3, and then king f5, so then you've got this opposition, and then you have, again, this shouldering idea, which you said, and then that's going to pick up the pawn and the game. But if we just jump back to later on, we've had lots of really interesting endgames today.
Yeah, we have.
It's
it's probably worth saying, well done to everyone on
yes,
some
of course.
really great games, and it's a really tight time control. We saw some go right down to the wire there. Obviously, only the first round of 3, so
yes,
all to play for, especially with so many draws. So thanks to everyone who sort of participated, and So should we see this final position? So
this king and pawn ending. So this was ending up as a draw, but at the very death after King G6, there was a chance for Rob Orton to make it 5 out of 6 matches at 1-1.
And what's really interesting is exactly the same position as we just had, but flipped. It's literally the exact same position.
Exactly the same.
Everything's symmetrical, but you play King E5.
You go King E5. Yeah.
E5, you're going to end up with the same thing, right?
Yeah. There we are. I'll draw the same arrows on if you want.
Exactly. That can't happen that often, can it? So the king runs in and grabs that pawn, and of course you're not going to be able to force that through on its own. Being a rook spawn, I think. Because of the configuration. But then you just run over to the queen side, and it's going to be easy. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
In 1 move, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's especially a new variant. That would make things much easier in endings anyway. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it's lots and lots of interesting endings and very instructive endings as well.
Mm,
And so yeah, I guess we'll see if this persists in a fortnight's time. Um,
yeah.
I guess should we say to everyone who's sort of watched the stream, if you've got any ideas or suggestions, or
Yeah.
you've enjoyed it or you haven't enjoyed it, kind of let us know. Um, Obviously, if you heard about this through the mailing list, the email that went out, if you can reply to that and sort of give a few comments, or if you're on Twitch, I guess there's people commenting in the channel or
Yeah.
in the chat thing there. So,
Absolutely. And,
but
and if
yeah,
you are watching and have a Twitch channel, please follow the channel because then you'll get an email to say when we actually go live. Rather than know roughly what time we go live, you'll get a notification to say when we actually go live. And it boosts the stats of the channel, so hopefully promotes it a little bit as well, which is great. So I think just a little quick recap of what's actually happened this evening is probably in order. So the major section, which is under, I don't know what it is in the 4-digit thing. Is it 1900?
it's up to 1900. Yeah,
Yes. So we've got one outright leader on 1.5 points. Is James Mcdonald, who defeated Rob Orton today, 1.5 in this final match, and then Mike Marshall, Steve Dean, Alex Poyser, and Brian Gosling all drew 1-1. So a really close section there. And you said at the start of the show, Tim, how many people are going to potentially get to 6 out of 6? Will it be anybody? Not in the major.
right in the
As
major.
incredibly close. And then in the minor section, Graham Wilson managed to defeat Barry Pritchard 2-0. So still on course for the infamous 6 out of 6, but it's an incredibly tough section. So
It is. It is
be
absolutely.
very tricky. But a good start for Graham there against a tough opponent. And then another 2 matches drawn. Barbara Newcomb, Richard Bailey, Trevor Hurt, and Robert Kelso. 4 draws there. Um, it's the number of draws has been very surprising. But
That's great. It just shows how sort of closely contested it is. So
yeah,
yeah, bodes well for the future rounds.
no,
Just a
absolutely.
just a final plug, I guess.
Yeah,
If anyone's watching and they're not already a member of the DCCA online club on chess.com, if you search for DCCA online club, we'll pop up and you can click to sort of join the club and we'll let you in. We do tournaments on a Monday and a Friday, and yeah, lots of other things sort of coming up in the pipeline. So yeah, get involved if you like what you see.
yep. No, thanks very much, Tim, and thanks also for hopping on the show. And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks where we see the second round of this.
Absolutely. So that's a fortnight tonight, isn't it? Yeah.
Fortnight tonight. Yeah,
Perfect.
looking forward to it, Tim.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot,
Right.
Tom.
Cheers, guys, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye for now.